Hey, this is Rene, welcome back to another video on this channel. And this is the long-awaited programming tutorial for the ICT Silver Bullet strategy. You can see it here in the background already. This is the EA, the strategy, created by this EA that I showed multiple times on the channel already. And I will show you how to exactly write the code for this so you can trade the ICT Silver Bullet strategy automatically. Please understand that this is not like the perfect one-to-one mirroring of the ICT strategy, because ICT says he has a lot of trading and analysis and stuff that also comes into play when using this strategy, but this strategy is of course not using some manual analysis. It's just following the rules, and you will learn about the rules by following this YouTube programming tutorial. Make sure to watch the whole thing, copy everything 100% as I do it here on the screen. This is the only way to really learn something about programming for the MetaTrader 5, and programming for the MetaTrader 5 is such a valuable skill if you want to be a profitable trader. In my opinion, there's no real way around it. All the traders that are doing manual backtesting and stuff, they're kind of just playing around, and so programming is really essential when you want to be a professional and when you want to take this serious. So let's jump right into programming, right? So what we want to do, first of all, we will create a class that can give us information about fair value gaps, because fair value gaps are really important for the Silver Bullet strategy. And if you are not able to follow along everything that I do here, I will skip through this first part really quickly, because I just uploaded another programming tutorial some days earlier, so you should definitely check this out. And in this video I created an indicator only, which shows the fair value gaps, and in this tutorial I did the first steps, or the same steps that I will do now, which is creating a class for the fair value gaps. So let's go to the MetaTrader 5 and let's go to Tools, MetaQuartz Language Editor. You can also click on this IDE button here. This will open the MetaQuartz Language Editor, and you can see this is the fair value gap YouTube program that I wrote in the last tutorial, and I created this class. And we will do something really similar now. But first, let me create the expert advisor that we will write now. So let me click on New in the upper left corner. I will select Expert Advisor Template. I will click Next, and then I will say Silver Bullet YouTube. This is the name for my program. You can choose any name you like. Then you click on Next, Next, and Finish. And this will create a brand new Expert Advisor for you. You can delete the first lines, the properties, and the gray lines. They're just comments for the programmer, and they do not have any impact on the functionality. Then I personally like to rearrange my curly brackets like this, but this is also optional. You do not have to do this. It's just personal preference. Okay, so we have 3 basic functions left. I will not explain all the basics here because this would take 2 or 3 hours for this tutorial. So this will be a little bit more advanced. If you want to learn everything about automated trading, check out the link in the video description and you will find a complete course. And trust me, it's absolutely worth it. It will boost your whole trading career. So in this video, I will just dive in quickly. So first of all, let's include the trade mql5 file already. We will need this for opening positions. And there's something else that comes in handy, because the ctrade class, of course, inherits from object or cobject, because everything pretty much which is a class in mql5 programming inherits from the cobject class. And we will need this cobject class because we will create our own fair value gap class here, which inherits from this cobject class. Again, I know I'm jumping in kind of quickly here in object-oriented programming and everything. If you haven't watched the video with the indicator, you should, because you will understand what I'm doing here. But let's now create some variables, and we will make all of them public so it's easier to access them. We want the direction for this fair value gap. If it is a up or down direction fair value gap, then we want to have the time of this fair value gap, and we also want to have the high and the low. Then when we have these values, we want to use them in two functions that I will now create for this fair value gap class. The first one is the draw function. And this function will draw the fair value gap, and it will also have a different segment for the trading hours, because the silver bullet strategy trades in 1 hour periods. Like the first one is 3 to 4 o'clock New York time. The second one is, I think, 10 to 11, not sure, I forgot already. And the third one should be 14 to 15. But I mean, you can look it up at the ICT channel or in the last videos that I did. But yeah, we will create this draw function here. And this function should only draw objects. So we will need a fair value gap object, and we can call this fair value gap. Maybe we can use silver bullet or silver bullet like this as a prefix, so we can delete all the objects in the OND in it later on. Silver bullet fair value gap, and then I want to add the time to string. I want to add the time, so we have a unique name for every fair value gap. And then here we want to create a object. And this object will be created in chart 0. Object name is object fair value gap. Object is object rectangle, of course. Then we have subwindow 0, and then we have the time, which is the time from this fair value gap here. And then we have the price, the first price, which can be the high or the low, doesn't really matter. And the second time is the time for the start of the trading time here. This is the start of the trading time, like for example 3 o'clock, and this is the end, for example 4 o'clock. This would be our trading window. And yeah, then we have we go until the start time, and the second price is the high, of course. Then we want to set object set integer, because we want to say object prop fill is true, and we want to set a color. And again, this is nothing new. Everything was done already in the previous tutorial for the indicator. And the color could be light gray. Great, like this. Okay, so this will create the rectangle for the fair value gap. Now I want to create another rectangle, so I will just copy everything, and then I will create object. This will be for the actual trading area. So we say silver bullet trade, and this can stay the same, but make sure to use object trade now for everything here as a name, so you do not mess things up. Then this is again a rectangle, but this time it starts at the time start time and goes to the time end time. Low and high are also taken from the fair value gap here. And the color could be color gray, so it's a different color just. Okay, so this is for drawing the fair value gap. Now I want to create another function, which I call draw trade level or trade levels. And here I want to draw the TP and the stop loss. So TP will be a parameter and stop loss will be a parameter. And what I want to do here is I want to create some more objects, object TP for example, which will be silver bullet, TP, and then plus time to string, just to get a unique name again. We will add the time of this specific fair value gap. And then we will, of course, create another object. Again, chart 0, object TP is the name here. It will be another rectangle, and it's window 0, and the time is again time start. Oh, so we will need some more parameters here. Date time, time start, and date time, time end. And now we can use the start date time here as a start time. Then we have the first price, which will be for a here we want to check the direction. So if the direction is greater than 0, which will later on mean that this is a fair value gap that is like going up. In this case, we want to use the high as the first price. Otherwise, we will use the low. And then we have the time end and the TP. And then, let's just copy these two lines here, because for this Oh, and make sure to exchange the name of the object. For this object, again, we want it to be filled, and the color should be light green. Is there a light green? Yes, there is. This is our TP rectangle, and then we want to copy everything for the stop loss rectangle, right? So SL, and object SL, it has to be every time now, of course. And we want to fill with orange, and the rest can stay pretty much the same, but instead nothing. This is fine. Okay, so this is our class that we want to use to store the information for the fair value gap, and also use it to draw the fair value gap and also draw the trade levels. So if we compile this, you can see everything's working, no error, but the program is of course doing nothing. What we want to do next is we want to create some input variables. Input variables are the ones that the user can change later on. So we want to use the lot size, the risk in percent. We want to have the minimum TP points. Min TP points, it's, I don't know, 150 was suggested in a video that I found online, but you can change this later on. And then we want to have enum time frame. We want to have a time frame period. M5 or M15 is recommended, I think. Maybe we can go with M5. And then we have, you could have minimum fair value gap points. But you don't have to. And you could have maximum fair value gap points, but I will just go with this. And then we, of course, need 2 hours for the trading hours. So we want time for start hour, which is 3 for the first session that is traded with this strategy. And then we have the time end hour, which is 4. And this, of course, would be 9 and 10 and 14 and 15 for the next periods, or whatever the next periods are. So these are our input variables. Then we need some global variables. Of course, we will need the trade object variable to open trades later on. And I want to have one C fair value gap pointer to one fair value gap. And we will use this one later on to just search for one fair value gap. Then we will update this pointer. And then we will use the variable here to always have access to our current fair value gap. Then on init and on dinit is not really needed. I mean, we can add here objects, delete all, and the prefix would be silver bullet. So we want to delete all the objects when the program is removed from the chart. And then let's go to the onTick function. OnTick function, as always, or as most of the time, is the most important function. Here we want to create a variable for the last day that was that we found a fair value gap. And this is important later on because we don't want to find multiple fair value gaps over and over again. We just want one trade per day. Okay, what we want to do next is we need a structure of mql date time type. And we will store the current time in this structure. And then now we want to go ahead and say, okay, structure time, a second should be 0, and the minutes should also be 0. Will also be 0. And now we want to get the starting and ending time for our time or trading interval. So we have struct time hour should be time start hour, and then we will create the start time. Then we will create the start time or get the start time using the struct to time function, and here we need our struct time structure, and we return this into a date time using this function. Then we have the time end hour, of course, and here we will use the same function again, but to get the ending time. Okay, so far so good. So now we want to check if we are between the time start and time end. So this is our trading interval, right? So in between of these two timestamps or times, we want to check or search for fair value gaps. But first of all, we want to make sure if the last day, which is this variable, is different than struct time, day of year. This will make sure that we only do whatever is inside of this if statement only once. And we will update the last day variable later on when we found a fair value gap. Okay, so what we want to do here is inside, or when this changes, which means that we entered a new trading period on a new day, first of all, we want to delete the fair value gap. This will delete the whatever pointer is stored in this variable. And this will make sure that we will then later on do not trade before we stored something new in this fair value gap variable. And then as a next step, we want to, wait a second. Yeah, as the next step, we then just want to go backwards and search for the first fair value gap that we can find. So we just go int I is equal to 1, I is smaller than 100, just to check like a maximum of 100 bars. And here we will just go back through the bars and search for fair value gaps. So what we want to do here is we want to check if I low and a symbol time frame I. So if the low of the candle at index I is above the high of 2 candles earlier, because this means we have a fair value gap, right? So we are checking if I low minus at index I minus the I high, or the high of the candle at I plus 2, if this is greater than min fair value gap points multiplied with point, then we have a fair value gap that is pointing low, high, up, I think. Like this. And yeah, then if this happens, we will have a fair value gap that's pointing up. Also, we can check if I low symbol time frame I plus 2 minus I high symbol time frame I is greater than min fair value gap points multiplied with point. This will give us the fair value gap that is going down. Okay, so we just checked if we found a fair value gap. If we find one, we will say fair value gap. This is our, again, this is this global variable here, which is a pointer. And here we say new C fair value gap, bloop, like this. And now we can say fair value gap direction is 1. Fair value gap time is equal to I time symbol time frame I plus 1. Then we have fair value gap high, which will be I low symbol time frame I. Then we have fair value gap low, which is I high symbol time frame I plus 2. And then, yeah, this is our fair value gap now. And now next, we can do the same thing, of course, here when we found a fair value gap that is going down. Of course, the direction should be -1, and this is +2 here, and here it's only I. So now we have a fair value gap when we found one, and we store all the important aspects of this fair value gap in this fair value gap variable here. What we can do next is we want to check if this fair value gap is still active, because if the fair value gap is, for example, going up, but the price was already coming back to the fair value gap, then we don't really want to trade this, right? Or at least this is how I understand this concept. So what we want to do is we want to check if the low of the lowest bar in between the start of the fair value gap and the current time, if this is below the low of the fair value gap. So we check if I low for symbol time frame, and then we have shift, and here we get the lowest mode low, and then we have the we go from the current bar to the point where we have the fair value gap, which is I plus 1. We start at 0, yeah, which is default. So if this is smaller than or equal the fair value gap low, then we don't want to trade it, right? Because in this case, we want to delete the fair value gap again that we created here. And then we want to say break. You could say that you want to continue here if you want to search for the next fair value gap then. So this will make a difference for the performance and everything. You can just try out different things. So you could say continue instead if you just want to skip this fair value gap then and search for another one. Maybe you will find another one that is still valid. And yeah, but if we have this fair value gap and it is not deleted, and we did not break from the loop, then we want to go here and say fair value gap draw. And we just give this the start and the end time. And then we update the last day variable, struct time, day of year, like this. So we make sure that when we found a fair value gap, we stop searching for more fair value gaps. And yeah, then also we can break from this loop, so we do not check the other fair value gap if we already found one. Okay, so here, let's copy this block here now for the fair value gap that's pointing downwards. And of course, we just have to turn everything around. So we want to check if the high or the highest high from the point on where the fair value gap was first seen, if it is higher or equal to the fair value gap high. In this case, we want to delete the fair value gap. Otherwise, we want to draw it and update the last day. So if we compile this, we can go to the MetaTrader 5 and then click Control R or click View Strategy Tester. And here you can, or you should find the program that you created. For me, it's Silver Bullet YouTube. And then you choose the chart symbol that you want to test, time frame, time period, and the inputs. Also make sure if you're not testing on New York data, you probably have a broker that has a GMT plus 2, which is, for example, for Europe, kind of usual. Then you would have to use different times here. Then it would be 10 to 11. You could also try 9 to 10, which worked kind of good for me. But yeah, it depends on your GMT time zone, what times you have to add here. Then let's check this again, 5-minute time frame. Okay, let's just start. I mean, this program will not open any trades. I'm just trying to see if we can, or if we will see the fair value gaps, and there is a fair value gap. So yeah, what the program does right now is it just waits until this 3 o'clock is reached, and then we will here search for the last fair value gap. We found it here. Then we will draw the first fair value gap box, also the trading zone here in dark gray, and that's pretty much it. So yeah, we can have a look at another example on the next day. If there was a fair value gap, there is another one, and we can do this as long as we like. Yeah, sometimes you will find the fair value gap already at 3 o'clock. Okay, so yeah, you will see that you will find fair value gaps whenever there is a fair value gap, and you are in the trading time. Okay, so that's it. So what we have to do next is we have to check if we hit one of the entry triggers here, right? So now this block is used to find the fair value gap. Now what we want to do next is we want to go here and check, or let's first of all get the bid and the ask price, symbol info double, symbol bid, and then we get the ask price, symbol info double, symbol info double, symbol ask, and then we want to check if And here, this is important. This is the reason why we always delete the fair value gap if it's no longer important for us. We want to check pointer or check the pointer for this fair value gap variable. And if this is not an invalid pointer, it means that it's still valid. Because if we delete it, this pointer becomes invalid. And then we do not enter the body of this if statement. Also, we want to check some more things. We want to check the fair value gap direction, if it's greater than 0. And also we want to check if the bid price or the ask price, I mean, it doesn't really matter, but yeah, we just want to check if the price jumped back into this fair value gap. In this case, we want to execute a buy trade, right? So what we want to do here is we want to calculate everything that we need. We get the entry, the TP, which is the last swing high, I guess. So we want to get the high, which is the highest high starting from the point where the fair value gap was located, and we get fair value gap time here, and that's it. And then we get this the low, and here for the low we get the it's the last swing low before the fair value gap. And my easy solution for this was to just use the iLow function and then just use the lowest low, time frame, mode low, starting at the fair value gap, time, and then going back 5 candles maximum. So this is my easy approach of finding the last swing low. I mean, this is not 100% perfect, but it will do the job most of the time. And yeah, then let's also get the lots. We will go with the lots here, which is the hard-coded input, or this input variable first, and then later on we can add the code for the lot size in percent. And now, since we have all of these values, we can draw the trade levels for this fair value gap. Time start, time end, like this. And yeah, maybe we can do the same thing now for the sell setups, where we have the fair value gaps that are that have a direction which is smaller than 0, because we set it here to -1, and we want to check if bid is greater than fair value gap low, like this. Then entry is of course the bid price, TP is, yeah, we just have to turn around everything here pretty much. Instead of I high, we use I low. Instead of I highest, we use I lowest. Instead of mode high, we use mode low. The rest can stay the same. And here for the stop loss, of course, it's the same. We have to turn everything around. And that's it. And then we just draw the trade levels. So if we test the program again, we should now see that the program is still not opening any positions, but it should give us the trade. Whoops, this looks super weird. Should give us the trade levels. Yeah, no, that's not correct. So TPSL, I think it's here where I messed up. Yeah. The function, the draw trade levels function, of course, the stop loss rectangle has to have a second price, which is the stop loss, not the TP again. Because otherwise TP and stop loss rectangles would be the same. So if we test this again, and then we should see that the trade levels are displayed, yeah, like they are here. And yeah, it's looking kind of nice, I would say. And yeah, that's fine. Okay, so what we have to do next is we have to check if the trade is a valid trade. So if the minimum TP is enough to trade this. So for buy setups, we want to check if TP minus fair value gap high or minus entry is greater than minimum TP points multiplied with point. In this case, oops, we want to open the trade, right? So we say if trade buy, and then we use the lots, we use the chart symbol, we use the entry, the stop loss, and the TP here. And if this worked, then we want to print by signal. Yeah, I mean, you don't have to print, but that's what you can do. And then we copy this block for the sell signals. And here we want to check if entry minus TP is greater than min TP points. And then we use trade sell, of course. Rest can stay the same, but this is a sell signal. So compile everything. And then, there's one more thing that I want to do. When this was done, we want to delete the fair value gap. So this is our way to make sure that we only do this once. So we only execute one trade or send one order, and then the fair value gap is deleted and the trading for the day is over. And then we wait for the next day. Okay, so this, that was a first trade already, which looked a little bit weird. Why was this a sell trade? Wait. No, this is not correct. So, wait, everything is messed up here. Wait, I have to check this. So this was a sell setup. This is kind of messed up. No, it's not really messed up. It is because when we entered the trading time, we were inside of this fair value gap already. So I think this is actually valid. Yeah, let's check some more signals. So next day we have a signal, but yeah, I think distance was just not enough for the TP here, so no trade, of course. Oh, there was a trade. Oops, let me go back. And we search for this trade. There's a trade. So we have 3 o'clock. We have the fair value gap. Oh, the fair value gap was here inside of this area. Then we go up, we go down, we have a TP of 200 whatever, and we have the stop loss down here, and this trade hits the stop loss, but this was a valid trading signal, I think. And then, yeah, let's search for more. This was not triggered. So let's go to the next day. Whoops, there was another trade. Let's have a look at this one. So there was the fair value gap. This was a buy signal. TP was 70 points. Okay. So we executed it down here when we reached the 150 points. Okay, this is something I have to fix. So, okay. So, yeah. So we cannot put this delete fair value gap here, but instead we will put it here. So we will delete it whenever the price hits the trading zone, and we do not wait for the other conditions to be true. So if we do it like this, it should now be better. But yeah, this is pretty much the whole program already. So you can see it's really, really easy to write something like this. And it's just, it doesn't take a lot of time, and you can now backtest so many stuff. So it's really powerful to optimize to automate strategies like this. And yeah, you can see it depends, of course, on the filter you choose. If I use only 50 points as a minimum TP, we will see a lot more trades, of course. So it depends on the settings. So let's go here with the 50 points TP, and you can see now pretty much every day, every fair value gap is a trade, because 50 points is not that much for the TP. And yeah, so there's one last thing that I want to show you, which is calculating the variable lot size. And we can write a function for this, which I call calculate lots. And then we have the stop loss distance as a parameter. And then what we want to do here is we want to calculate the risk first that we have for a trade. And this is account info double. And yet then you can use account balance or equity, whatever you want to use as a basis for the calculation. And then we multiply this with the risk in percent divided by 100. Risk in percent is, of course, the input variable that we created here. So the user is able to change this. And then this is our risk. Next, we need the tick size. Symbol info double symbol trade tick size. Then we need the tick value, symbol info double. We need this to calculate later on the lot size, and then I think that's it. And then we want to check if tick size equals 0, we return -1, because we will now divide through the tick size, money per lot, because we want to calculate how much money we would lose if we trade a complete lot for this stop loss distance. So what we do is we divide stop loss distance by tick size and multiply this with the tick value. And then we check if money per lot is equal to 0, return -1, because in the next step we want to divide by money per lot, and we say lots is equal to risk divided by money per lot, and this has to be rounded to 2 digits after the decimal point, like this. And that's pretty much it. Then we can return the lots, and then we can use this function here now. So if lots is equal to 0, then we want to calculate this using calculate lots function, and the stop loss distance is, of course, for sell positions it's stop loss minus entry, and for buy positions it's calculate lots entry minus SL. Okay, like this. So now we should be able to use a variable lot size if we use 0 for lots in the settings and 0.5 for the risk in percent. Let's see what happens. Oops, there was a trade. And yeah, you can see the lot size is now 1.09 lots, and the lost amount is it's like just the profit is really close to 0.5%. Of course, if you add the commission, it's a little bit more. But yeah, that's how you can use a variable lot size, and you can see losses are now usually a little bit less than these 0.5%, and profits are, of course, depends on the TP. And that's it. That's how you can automate the silver bullet strategy using a simple expert advisor. And yeah, if we have a look at the program again, we can see this is not really a super complex program. It's just like 150 lines of code. So it's easy to write it. And it took me like half an hour maybe, a little bit more with explanations and stuff. But I didn't explain too much in this video because I don't want it to be a 3-hour long video. This is just to show how to code the strategy, not to explain programming concepts. If you're interested, check out the first link in the video description. And you will learn everything you need to know for mql5 programming. So you will be able to write your own programs. But in this tutorial, I just, sorry, a little bit sick right now. In this tutorial, I just created this class for the fair value gap, which has 4 member variables and 2 functions. And then we had a bunch of input variables here. Then we had some global variables here. We have a onInit function that we don't use, onDinit where we only delete the objects when the program is removed from the chart, and then the onTick function. Here we first pretty much calculate the times, the trading times. Then we check if we are in between these two trading times. Then we search for a fair value gap in the last 100 candles. If we find one, we will update our fair value gap variable here, create a new object, and then we provide the parameters or the look of this fair value gap. Then we check if it is still valid or if it was broken already. And then if it is still valid, we draw it, we update the last day so we don't do this multiple times, and do the same, of course, for fair value gaps that are going down. Then when we find a fair value gap, which is what we check here, so if we found one, we check if this fair value gap is, if the price reached the fair value gap. If this is true, we calculate the parameters for a trade, and then we draw the trade levels, and then we enter the trade, and then we delete the fair value gap. So that's it. It's really as easy as this. And again, here's the function for calculating the lot size. This is something you can use in every program, by the way. And that's it. That's the silver bullet strategy programming tutorial. Hope you liked it. I know that if you are a programming beginner, you are probably not able to really follow along. I hope that you can still copy the code. And if you want to learn more, again, check out the link in the video description and you will learn everything. So that's it. Thanks for watching. Have a great time and good trades. Bye-bye.